Chapter 4. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains. And it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. But they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken it. For all people will walk every one in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. In that day, saith the Lord, will I assemble her that halteth, and I will gather her that is driven out, and her that I have afflicted. And I will make her that halted a remnant, and her that was cast far off a strong nation. And the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from henceforth even forever. And thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come, even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Zion. Now, why dost thou cry out aloud? Is there no king in thee? Is thy counselor perished? For pangs have taken thee as a woman in travail. Be in pain, and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field. And thou shalt go down even to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. Now also many nations are gathered against thee, that say, Let her be defiled, let our eye look upon Zion. But they know not the thoughts of the Lord, neither understand they his counsel. For he shall gather them as the sheaves into the floor. Arise and thresh, O daughters of Zion, for I will make thine horn iron, and I will make thy hooves brass, and thou shalt beat in pieces many people, and I will consecrate their gain unto the Lord, and their substance unto the Lord of the whole earth. In the latter days, it says, the temple will be built in the mountains of the Lord, and all people will flow unto it. Many nations will go and be taught the Lord's ways, and the nations will serve the Lord. It says the law will go forth from Zion, and the word from Jerusalem. As we are used to thinking of these things, so I'm used to thinking of these things, this is an incredible prophecy here. There is obviously going to be a temple someplace, at least one temple, someplace other than Jerusalem. Now we know there was another temple in southern Israel. We found that archaeologically. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about a temple being built in the latter days in the mountains. So these are not going to be in the foothills, which is really where Judah is, where Israel is. These are going to be mountains. This is the word in Hebrew means mountains. Does not mean low hills. Thank you very much. And all nations will flow into it. You need to understand just how foreign a concept, how utterly different that was than what happened with the temple in Jerusalem. In the temple in Jerusalem, if you were not a practicing Jew or member of the 12 tribes, there was an outer court called the court of the Gentiles that you could go to. But if you set foot inside the inner gate, which was the gate of the women or the gate of the men, you were dead. Even in Roman times, there were signs in several languages outside, and of course you had to go in through the gate of the, you went up the steps, went into the court of the Gentiles, and anybody could go there. But you didn't dare go through into the court of the women if you were not a Hebrew man. Even in Roman times, there were signs beside the gate, and it applied to Roman soldiers and applied to Roman military people and Roman politicians, that going through this gate could and would result in the Hebrew people, they had their own guards, killing you. No appeal, no arresting you first, no taking you into custody and having a trial, just slice you in half, throw a spear through your heart, whatever. To have a temple in the last days, where all nations of the earth, or many nations of the earth, could go there, is a totally different kind of temple than what they had, than Solomon had built and what they had there. Now, the law is the doctrine. So when Moses went up to talk with the Lord, he brought down the law, the doctrine, the thou shalts and the thou shalt nots, and this is how we're going to operate, and these are the things we're going to do. The word, in my understanding, means the history, all the traditions, which are a very great different thing from the law. The traditions might say you buy this kind of wine for this kind of celebration, or you use these kind of grapes or whatever, but that is not the doctrine. And the Lord is always anxious that people understand the doctrine is totally different than the traditions. Some religions, some groups of Jews, their tradition is everything. But the Lord really wants the heart, the righteous heart. Now, so there, obviously in the last days, we're looking at a totally different situation than we are looking at right here and now. Now, the question is, in verses 8 to 13, if Jerusalem is going to be overthrown, how is Jerusalem going to be made great then? And Micah uses the example of a woman giving birth for an illustration of the pain that Judah and Israel would go through in the process of bringing new life to them again, in that the woman goes through the pain of childbirth, a massive amount of pain in many cases, and that in that pain there is new life that is given, a new start. And that the pain that Jerusalem would understand would be the Babylonian captivity, which was a remarkable prophecy at the time is given, because you haven't got a clue, but it was at least 130 years after Micah gave this prophecy that Babylon, which at the time Micah gave the prophecy, Babylon was just a minor province of the Assyrian Empire. And it was 130 years later before the Babylonians took over the Assyrian Empire. There's a prophecy for you. Last but not least in this chapter, Micah used the example of the threshing floor to explain the power of Israel to defend herself and defeat her enemies. And he used the symbol of the power of the horns of iron, which an animal would use to push against anything it needed to push against, and the hooves of brass, which mean just power, being able to do whatever you wanted, and that Israel would be able to trample her enemy as easily as an ox would walk around and around on the sheaves of grain on a threshing floor to thresh the grain. It's just a very simple process. It just takes time.